My sister Dana's voice was too calm. The kind of calm you only get after rehearsing something at least a dozen times in the bathroom mirror. I think it's better if you don't come to the wedding, she said. Derek's parents are very particular about the atmosphere they want. They feel like you might complicate things. Complicate things. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter to stay steady. Complicate things how, Dana? You've always been intense, Nora. You ask too many questions. You make people uncomfortable without even realizing it. I stared at the wall. 3 months earlier, I had wired $2,400 into Dana's account when her landlord gave her 48 hours over a security deposit she couldn't cover. She'd called me crying at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't ask one single question. I just sent the money. I reminded her of that now. Quietly. Silence stretched between us like a rubber band pulled way too far. Then, it's just easier this way. The call ended. I sat on my kitchen floor, not crying, just shaking in that hollow, empty way that goes so much deeper than tears ever could. That night my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Is this Nora Ellison? The woman's voice was professional but slightly rushed, like someone squeezing a call between two overloaded meetings. Yes, I said carefully. Who's this? My name is Patricia Webb. I'm the venue coordinator at Callaway Estate. I'm calling regarding the Briggs-Harmon wedding booking. Your name is still listed as the primary maid of honor contact on our coordination file. I need to confirm updated insurance documentation before our Friday deadline. I stood up slowly from the kitchen floor. Ms. Webb, I said, I need to stop you right there. I was uninvited from the wedding earlier today. I am no longer involved in any part of the planning. Pause. A long one. You were uninvited, she repeated slowly, like she was turning the words over carefully in her hands. Yes. Another pause. Then she exhaled, that small, tired sound of someone about to say something they probably shouldn't. Miss Ellison, I'm going to be honest with you because I genuinely don't know who else to call right now. Her voice dropped slightly. We are 3 days away from suspending their booking entirely. My stomach hit the floor. Suspending, I said. What exactly does that mean? It means, she said carefully, the wedding may not happen at all. Patricia explained it the way someone reads from a checklist they wish didn't exist. The second installment payment for Callaway Estate, $11,500, had been due 8 days ago. The check submitted by the groom's parents had bounced. Not declined. Bounced. Which meant the funds weren't just delayed. They simply weren't there. On top of that, the event liability insurance listed on the booking had coverage gaps the venue's legal team had already flagged. If anything went wrong on the wedding day, Callaway Estate could be exposed. Both problems needed to be resolved by Friday at 5 p.m. Or May 17th would be released to the next client on the waitlist. Does my sister know about any of this? I asked. Patricia hesitated just a half-second too long. The formal notice was emailed to the account holder this morning. That account belongs to Derek's mother, Vivian Harmon. Not Dana. Vivian. My sister thinks the Harmon family is handling all the vendor payments, I said slowly. That's my understanding, yes. Then almost gently she added the part that made my skin go cold. Miss Ellison, your sister believes everything has already been fully paid. Dana had no idea the ground was crumbling right beneath her wedding. I remembered the October afternoon clearly now. We were all at Dana's apartment. Her, me, Derek, and his mother Vivian. It was supposed to be a casual planning lunch. Vivian arrived with a color-coded binder and a very fixed smile. About 40 minutes in, she slid a proposal across the table. I'd like to take over all vendor payments directly, she said, folding her hands neatly. It's more streamlined this way. One point of contact, fewer errors. I watched Dana's face. Something moved through her eyes. Not quite discomfort but close. The look of someone sensing a wrong turn but unsure how to say so without making a scene. That's really generous, Dana said carefully. It's practical, Vivian replied, already moving to the next page in her binder. I raised one question. Just one. I asked which account the payments would come from and whether vendors would receive confirmations directly. Vivian looked at me with that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. It's all taken care of, Nora. 2 days later, I was quietly removed from the wedding planning group chat. That was the moment she decided I was a problem. Not because I was dramatic. Because I asked the one question that would have exposed everything. I didn't call Dana that night. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time, thumb hovering over her name. But every time I almost pressed it, I heard her voice again. It's just easier this way. She hadn't defended me. Not to Vivian, not to Derek, not to anyone. She had made her choice cleanly. So I made mine. The next morning I emailed Patricia Webb at Callaway Estate. Short and professional. I formally confirmed I had no active role in the wedding planning and requested my name be removed from all coordination documents and any associated liability paperwork. I copied the email to myself and saved it. Then I pressed send. Patricia replied within 2 hours. Mostly administrative, confirmation of my removal, a note that the file would be updated. But at the very bottom, below her signature, was one line she had clearly typed and almost deleted but decided to leave. Off the record, something about this situation doesn't sit right with me. I'm glad you're protecting yourself. I read that line 3 times. Then I printed the entire email thread and placed it in a folder in my desk drawer. I didn't know then how many times I would need that folder. But something in me did. 2 days later, Patricia sent me a longer message. The Harmon family payments had all come from a business account registered under Harmon Property Solutions LLC. Through a routine credit verification that venues run on large bounced payments, Patricia had learned the account was frozen, pending a financial audit. She didn't use the word investigation. She didn't have to. Whatever was happening with the Harmon family finances was serious enough that their bank had restricted outgoing transfers. The bounced check wasn't carelessness. It was a symptom of something much bigger. And here was the part that made my stomach turn. The audit had likely begun around the same time Vivian volunteered to take over all wedding payments. She had stepped in right when she knew her own finances were becoming dangerously unstable. She had inserted herself into the middle of my sister's wedding budget, taken control away from everyone, and then quietly run out of road. If this became public in their town, and in a town of 40,000 these things always become public, the Harmon name would take a serious hit. They weren't just scrambling to save a wedding. They were scrambling to save a reputation built entirely on appearances. And appearances, it turns out, are only as strong as the accounts that back them. I found out about the social media post from my cousin Bev, who sent me a screenshot at 7:14 in the morning with 0 context and 3 question mark emojis. Dana had posted on her personal page. Deliberately vague. The kind of post that says everything while technically saying nothing. Something about protecting the energy of a sacred day and making difficult but necessary choices about who deserves to be part of your journey. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. Within 2 hours, relatives were texting me. Not asking for my side, just commenting. My Aunt Renee sent a long message about how weddings are stressful and people say things they don't mean. My cousin Paul texted, "You okay? Heard there was some drama." I hadn't caused a single thing. I had simply asked one reasonable question 4 months ago, been quietly erased and said nothing publicly. And now I was the drama. I didn't respond to any of them. But that afternoon Bev sent another screenshot. This one was from a family group chat I had been removed from, one I didn't even know existed until that moment. Someone had been talking about me. And it wasn't Dana. The message was from Vivian Harmon. Bev had captured it cleanly. The timestamp showed it was sent the very day after I was uninvited. Vivian had moved fast. It read, "We all want Dana's day to be perfect. Unfortunately, certain family members have a history of financial instability and unpredictable behavior at events. We felt it was safest to simplify the guest arrangements. Dana agrees this is the right call. Financial instability. I, Nora Ellison, who had paid my own rent every single month for 9 straight years, sent my sister $2,400 without blinking, maintained a healthy savings account and not one single debt in collections, was the financially unstable one. Vivian Harmon, whose business account had just bounced an $11,500 check, was calling me the risk. I scrolled down. Bev had captured the replies too. Relatives chiming in with hearts and warm, supportive words. And then, Dana's reply. One word. Handled. Not a defense of me. Not a correction of Vivian's lie. Just a single clean word that closed every single door at once. Something shifted in me right then. Not anger. More like a door closing deep inside my chest. Quietly. Permanently. For good. Patricia called on Thursday afternoon. Her voice had lost the cautious professional edge from our first conversation. She sounded tired now. The formal cancellation notice goes out tomorrow morning if we don't receive payment and corrected insurance documentation by 5 p.m., she said. I've sent 3 emails to the account holder and left 2 voicemails. No response. Vivian was going silent. I'm sorry, Patricia, but I've already removed myself. There's nothing I can. I know, she said quickly. I'm not calling to ask for help. I just wanted you to know since your name was on the file so long. As a courtesy. We stayed on the line for a quiet moment. How long have you been doing this job? I asked. 11 years, she said. And situations like this, do they usually work out? Pause. When people are honest with each other early enough, yes. When they're not. She trailed off. She didn't need to finish. We hung up. I made tea and sat by my window watching the street below. 20 minutes later my phone buzzed. It was Dana. After 6 days of complete silence, my sister was finally calling me. And I knew before I answered that this call had nothing to do with an apology. She was crying before she even finished saying my name. Nora, there's been some confusion with the venue. I can't get Vivian on the phone and Derek keeps saying it's a temporary cash flow thing and Patricia Webb keeps sending these emails and I don't understand what's happening. Dana. I kept my voice level. Slow down. She took a breath. Do you still have your contact at Callaway? Could you call her and explain that we're working on it? You always know how to handle these situations, Nora. You're so good at. I noticed she wasn't apologizing. She was building toward an ask. The tears weren't about me or what she'd done. They were about the venue. About the mess that was now impossible to hide from. I do still have Patricia's contact, I said carefully. Dana's breathing steadied immediately. Hey, good. So you can call her and just. But Dana. Kept my voice even. I removed myself from all liability documentation 2 days ago. In writing. I'm no longer affiliated with the booking. Silence. What does that mean? Her voice had shifted completely. It means I protected myself, I said simply. The same way you should have done months ago. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. Then it cracked open. Are you serious right now? Dana's voice moved from tears to something much sharper. The venue might cancel and you're sitting there being petty? This is my wedding, Nora. The most important day of my life. I'm not being petty, I said. You removed yourself from the paperwork to punish me because your feelings got hurt. I let her finish. Then I spoke slowly. You told me it was easier without me there. I respected that. I made sure your problems wouldn't legally become mine. That's not punishment, Dana. That's just sense. So you're not going to help me. I didn't say that. Pause. He was actually listening now. What I will not do, I said carefully, is call Patricia on your behalf, smooth everything over, and let you go back to Vivian running everything while I disappear into the background again. I'm done doing that. Then what are you saying? Come here tomorrow. I will tell you exactly what I know about what's happening with that venue and why. Everything. I paused. But come ready to actually hear it. The line was quiet. Fine, she said finally. Just that one word. But she came. Dana arrived the next morning looking like she hadn't slept at all. I made coffee. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd once helped her write her college application, held her hand through her first real heartbreak, counted out $2,400 on a panicked Tuesday night. I laid out the facts without drama. The bounce check. The frozen business account under Harmon Property Solutions LLC. The venue's Friday deadline. I told her Patricia had called me the very same night I'd been uninvited, because my name was still on the file. Dana stared at her mug through most of it. How do you know all this? She asked when I finished. Because I stayed calm and documented everything instead of reacting, I said. She started to speak. Then my phone buzzed on the table. A text from Bev. I glanced at it and turned the phone toward Dana without a word. Nora, just heard through a banking contact. IRS opened a formal inquiry into Harmon Property Solutions. This isn't just an audit. It's bigger than that. Dana stared at the screen. All the color left her face. Derek knew, she whispered. She wasn't talking to me. She was somewhere far away, a place where the ground had just shifted beneath everything she thought was solid. The vendors figured it out before Derek even confessed anything to Dana. The florist, a woman named Clara who had worked Callaway Estate weddings for 6 years, put a hold on the floral order when her deposit check from Vivian's account came back unprocessed. She'd been in this business long enough to know exactly what a frozen account looked like. The caterer requested certified funds only. No personal checks, no business accounts. His email to Vivian was politely worded but completely firm. The photographer, a quiet man named Ben who had been Vivian's personal recommendation, began reviewing his contract's payment terms very carefully. Word moves fast in vendor circles. These people work the same venues, attend the same industry events, share the same cautionary stories over coffee. Within 48 hours of Clara placing her hold, everyone connected to the May 17th booking knew something was deeply wrong on the Harmon side. Vivian started making calls. Desperate, patch the holes in a sinking ship kinds of calls. She got voicemails. She got polite hold messages. Patricia told me later that Vivian had actually shown up at Callaway Estate unannounced on a Thursday afternoon, asking to renegotiate payment terms face-to-face. Patricia had met her in the lobby and handed her the formal written cancellation notice right there. The Harmons were running out of walls. Dana showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday afternoon. It was the knock of someone not sure they deserved to be let in. I opened the door. She looked worse than Thursday. Her face was tight and pale, the look of someone holding themselves together through sheer force of will, very close to losing the ability to do it. I stepped aside. She came in and sat on the couch. "He knew," she said before I could even sit down. "Derek knew. He told me everything last night." She pressed her hands flat against her knees. His parents had presented themselves as financially solid since long before he proposed. The property business, the investments, the comfortable lifestyle, he'd grown up trusting it the way you trust the ground. But over 18 months, the business had been hemorrhaging contracts. They'd borrowed against assets, restructured debts in ways that looked fine on paper and weren't. When his mother volunteered to take over wedding payments, Derek had been relieved. He hadn't questioned her. And then everything moved. "He's known for at least 6 weeks that the payments were in serious trouble," Dana said. Her voice had gone very quiet. "He didn't tell me." She looked up. "I think I really messed up," she whispered. I let the silence sit before asking the question that had been forming in my mind since October. "Dana," I said carefully, "when Vivian first offered to take over vendor payments, what did Derek say?" She frowned. He said it made sense. That his mom was organized and it would be easier for everyone. And when I asked which account the payments would come from, she stopped. Her eyes changed. "She got weird," Dana said slowly. "Vivian." She kind of laughed and redirected, and you pushed with a follow-up question, and then she trailed off. "Then I was removed from the planning group chat 2 days later," I said. Dana closed her eyes. "She told Derek you were trying to control the budget," she said quietly. "That you were overstepping. That you'd make everything difficult. And Derek told me." She opened her eyes. "And I believed them both. There was the real reason. Not because I was too intense. Not because I would cause a scene. Not because of drama or atmosphere or any of the careful words Vivian and Derek had used. Because I had asked one reasonable question about a financial arrangement. The single question that would have exposed everything months earlier. I wasn't the dramatic sister. I was the only person paying close enough attention. Patricia Webb called me on a Monday morning. "The date has been officially released," she said. "May 17th is no longer held for the Briggs Harmon event. All parties have been formally notified." I thanked her. She started to say goodbye, then paused. "Nora, can I speak off the record for a moment?" "Of course. You handled yourself with remarkable professionalism through all of this. Most people in your position would have either disappeared completely or made things significantly worse." She paused. "The way you documented everything, removed yourself from liability at exactly the right moment, stayed calm while everyone around you fell apart. That's not something I see very often." I didn't know what to say, so I just thanked her again. "There's one more thing," she said. "The slot hasn't been transferred to a new client yet. If your sister wanted to reinstate the date, that is technically still possible." I went very still. The conditions would be full outstanding payment settled immediately and complete contractual responsibility transferred to a new account holder. She paused carefully. Someone the venue already trusts. The implication was clear. It would need to be me. I told her I needed to think. She gave me until Wednesday. I called Dana that evening. I didn't soften anything. She was done with things being softened. The date can still be reinstated, I told her. Patricia is willing to work with us. But the conditions aren't negotiable. Full outstanding payment. No business accounts, no checks from Vivian, nothing connected to Harmon Property Solutions. Complete contractual responsibility would need to transfer to a clean account, entirely separate from the Harmon family. Which means, I said clearly, Vivian and Derek's father cannot have any financial role in this wedding going forward. Not $1. Silence. That's going to start a war, Dana said. Dana, it's already a war, I said. You just haven't been the one fighting it yet. More silence. I heard her breathing slowly. And Derek, she asked. That's between you and him. But a man who watched this unravel for 6 weeks and said nothing owes you an explanation. Not me. Not the venue. You. What if he can't give me one I can live with? I didn't answer that. Because some questions aren't mine to solve. You need to decide what you actually want, I said gently. Not what everyone around you wants. What do you want, Dana? She didn't answer that night. But I could hear her really thinking about it for the very first time. Dana confronted them on a Tuesday evening. She told me about it afterward at my kitchen table, a cup of tea she kept wrapping and unwrapping her hands around. She had gone to Derek's parents' house. Sat in their living room, the same one where she'd had dinner a dozen times, where Vivian had called her darling and served tea from fine china. She asked for the full truth. Vivian deflected first. Cash flow issues. All temporary, completely manageable, no need to involve outside parties. The smile, the confidence, the binder-carrying certainty. Then Dana said my name. She said Nora had been right to ask about the accounts in October. That removing me from the wedding hadn't fixed anything. It had only removed the one person paying close enough attention to notice. That's when Vivian's composure cracked completely. She turned on Derek. Why had he told Dana everything? Why couldn't he manage things quietly? Was he really going to let some bitter, interfering sister-in-law? That's my sister, Dana said. Her voice was quiet but absolutely final. The room went still. Derek sat through all of it without speaking once. That same hollow, choosing nothing silence I had watched from people my whole life who didn't want to pick a side. That silence told Dana everything she needed to know. The postponement announcement went out the following Thursday. Dana sent it herself. Short, factual, no emotional language. Due to circumstances beyond our control, the May 17th ceremony would be postponed until further notice. Details to follow. No blame. No explanation. Just facts. I helped her write it. We sat at her apartment, she typed while I suggested wording, and it took maybe 20 minutes. She sent it to 140 guests. Then she placed her phone face down on the table and didn't pick it up for 3 hours. The small-town machinery turned almost immediately. Within 24 hours people were talking, but not about me. Not about the intense, complicated, dramatic sister who caused problems. They were talking about bounced checks, frozen business accounts, and an IRS inquiry into a family that had always presented itself as the picture of success. The florist answered honestly when people asked why her delivery had been cancelled. The caterer did the same. The story wrote itself because the facts were simply right there. Sitting in plain sight. Vivian Harmon had built her family's reputation entirely on appearances. And appearances are only as strong as the accounts behind them. For the first time in months, the story spreading through that town was not about me. It was about them. Dana called me at 2:14 in the morning on a Friday. I answered immediately. She wasn't crying. That was the first thing I noticed. Her voice was steady in that exhausted, past-all-emotion way that comes after you've done the hardest thing and the tears have completely dried up. I left his house, she said. I'm at a hotel off Route 9. I'm fine. I just needed you to know where I was. Do you need me to come? No. I just need to talk. So we talked. For almost 2 hours. She told me what she'd found, not through snooping but because Derek had finally, completely broken down and told her everything. He'd been trying to protect his parents. Telling himself it would stabilize. Saying just a little longer, just until things smooth out. But there was more. Debt in his personal name she hadn't known about. loans he'd co-signed for his father's business, liabilities attached to his credit that would follow him, and by marriage follow her, for years. She'd gone into this engagement believing she knew the full picture. She hadn't even seen the frame. "I'm ending it," she said. Quiet. Completely certain. "The engagement is done." I didn't try to talk her out of it. I just stayed on the line. The Harmon family's response came fast and ugly. Within a week of Dana ending the engagement, Vivian was making comments across every social circle she could reach. The garden club, church, the kind of small-town gatherings where reputations are quietly assembled and quietly destroyed over refreshments. She implied that Dana had been manipulated, that an outside influence had poisoned the relationship, that certain people had never wanted this marriage to happen. Certain people. She never used my name. He didn't need to. But documentation is a beautiful thing. Patricia Webb had kept detailed records of every communication connected to the booking, every bounced payment notice, every unanswered email to Vivian's account, every voicemail left without a callback. The vendors had their own paper trails. The bank had its own records. When a local journalist named Audrey, who wrote a small business column for the county paper, began asking questions about Harmon Property Solutions, the answers were already right there in writing. Nobody accused anyone of anything. The receipts spoke on their own. 2 weeks after Dana ended the engagement, a short factual article confirmed that Harmon Property Solutions LLC was under formal IRS review. It named no one beyond the business itself. But everyone in that town could read exactly between those lines. The apologies came in quietly, the way they tend to when people realize they were wrong but don't want to announce it. My Aunt Renee called on a Sunday. She spent 5 minutes circling the point before finally saying she wished she'd asked for my side instead of assuming. I told her I appreciated that. We talked about other things and hung up on decent terms. My cousin Paul sent a short text. Awkward but genuine. Heard the full story. Sorry I didn't check in properly. You all right? Bev, who had been quietly sending me screenshots from the very beginning and staying in my corner through all of it, simply said, "Told you." But the one that mattered most came from Dana. Not a call. Not a text. She came to my apartment on a Sunday morning with a paper bag from the bakery down the street. The one we used to go to together as teenagers. Cinnamon rolls still warm. She sat across from me and said clearly, "You were right. About all of it. I'm sorry it took me this long to say that out loud." No qualifiers. No, but you could have handled it differently. Just the truth. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. The months that followed were quiet and real in a way the months before never were. Dana started therapy in June. She'd resisted it for years. Our family wasn't the kind that talked openly about such things, but she found a therapist named Dr. Osei 2 towns over and began going every Tuesday. She told me it was hard and uncomfortable and possibly the most useful thing she'd ever done. He found a better job too. She'd been underemployed for 2 years, which she downplayed around the Harmons because Vivian had a subtle way of making ambition feel unladylike. She applied for a project manager position at a company in the city and got it on her first interview. I watched her rebuild herself piece by piece, with the same quiet stubbornness that had always been underneath the people-pleasing surface. Our relationship rebuilt slowly too. We didn't pretend the past year hadn't happened. We talked about it, sometimes uncomfortably, sometimes until one of us changed the subject because it was just too much for one evening. But we kept talking. That part was new. The $2,400, she paid it back in 2 installments without me asking. Then a single text arrived, with interest. "I owe you so much more than money." I cried a little at that. Patricia Webb called me on a Thursday in September. We'd stayed in loose contact since everything unraveled. A few emails, one call regarding a vendor payment dispute that referenced the Harmon booking in its paperwork. Through all of it, we'd built something like a professional friendship. "I have a proposition," she said. "Hear me out before you respond." Callaway Estate was expanding its vendor coordination services. They were managing a growing number of high-stakes private events, corporate celebrations, large family gatherings, weddings with complicated financial or family dynamics. They needed an independent event consultant, specifically for situations where financial arrangements needed a steady, objective outside hand. "After watching how you handled the Harmon situation," Patricia said, "how you documented everything, removed yourself from liability at exactly the right moment, and stayed completely calm while everyone around you fell apart, I recommended you personally to our director. There was a short interview process. I met with the estate director, a measured woman named Carol, who asked very direct questions and seemed to genuinely appreciate that I gave very direct answers. 3 weeks after that meeting, I had a signed consulting contract on my kitchen table. I sat there for a long moment just looking at it. The wedding that uninvited me had just upgraded my entire career. 14 months after Vivian Harmon's voice went cold on a Tuesday night, I walked back through the doors of Callaway Estate. Not as the discarded sister. Not as a name needing removal from a liability file. I walked in as a consultant, badge on, clipboard in hand, overseeing financial documentation for a corporate event. Patricia met me in the lobby and said, "Welcome back," like it was the most natural thing in the world. Because by then it was. Dana got engaged again 8 months after ending things with Derek. His name is Will. A high school science teacher, honest and steady. On their third date he told her exactly what he earned and what he owed. She called me the next morning and said, "Nora, I think I found a real one." He was right. When she asked me to be maid of honor and also handle vendor coordination since I now did it professionally, we both laughed until we were in tears. Nobody controlled the guest list but Dana. Nobody controlled the money but the people who actually had it. The Harmons lost their standing. Derek lost his fiancée. Vivian lost the reputation she'd spent years building. I lost nothing. Except the belief that shrinking yourself is the price of being loved. It isn't. It never was.